Okay, good evening, everyone. We are beginning Os Tes Zion. So I got an email from Rabbi Yitzchak, and maybe it's better, Rabbi Yitzchak, if you unmute yourself and say the question, so everybody can hear it with your passion for the truth.
All right. Let me find it. All right. I don't know where it is. Okay.
Just ask it. Just ask it.
I felt that we're talking from two sides of our mouth.
Okay.
Because you're saying that somebody who has a gripe about business can change it if he follows going according to halacha. But then again, we also are learning here in the Chazon Ish, you have Emunah and Bitachon. So what's he doing? What are you talking about? If somebody comes in to do the same business that you're doing, then you should have Emunah and Bitachon that whatever Hashem is providing is it. And whatever parnasa you get, that's what it is. And to go to court and to go to Beis Din, even if it's right, is wrong, because then it shows your lack of Emunah and Bitachon. So it's like you're turning one way or the other way, but it's not following down the middle path of Emunah and Bitachon.
Okay, so let me rephrase it to make sure I have your question exactly clear, because I don't want to jump with the answer without assuming that I've understood your question properly. Because as soon as I read the question, I had an answer, but that's not good. I have to make sure I got exactly your intent of the question. So this is what I think you're saying. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying if you have Emunah and Bitachon and Hashem is taking care of everything, so why do you got to get involved in what's crashing into your life? Because if Hashem has already decided you're getting X amount of parnasa, and this person can't hurt you more than what Hashem would want him to hurt you, so why are you getting involved at all? So even if he's quote unquote breaking the law, just let it be.
Correct. Right? Correct.
Okay. So let's take your question further. Okay. Let's. Okay. In other words, your question is coming from the point of, well, we have great bitachon, and let's just live with that. So again, we have to go back to the old question of, is there any place for hishtadlus in a world of bitachon? And the answer is yes. That's part of what Hashem wants us to do. Unless you are someone like the Baal Shem Tov, who every movement of your little pinky is with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem is your whole life, which most of us are not on that level. I'm surely not on it. So Hashem wants us to be engaged in normal life. For example, when we came to Eretz Yisrael, Hashem says, I want you to farm the land. I want you to take care of the land. Now, we could have said, no, it's up to you, Hashem. You're the one who provides parnasa. Just bring it on. Hashem says, no, I don't want that. I want you to make some hishtadlus and to see that from this hishtadlus, I will bless your hishtadlus, and you'll be able to survive knowing that I'm taking care of this. This really is speaking a much larger issue. The Chovas HaLevavos talks a lot about this. And he says, why? This really goes to a deeper question, I believe. And the deeper question is, why did Hashem make us want to work? Part of the curse to Adam and Chava was that you have to work by the spread of your brow. Well, why didn't Hashem just say, have more Emunah? Have more Emunah. That's not what Hashem said. So the Chovas HaLevavos says like this, It's really important for a person to be busy. Now, if you're not busy, you can get yourself into all kinds of trouble. Now, what's the best way to be busy? The best way to be busy is learning Torah. If you want to dedicate your entire life to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and mamish, I'm going to be busy every waking minute. I'm going to be like the Chazon Ish. I'm going to be spending every minute learning Torah. I'm just going to sell my books to make parnasa. And you're very preoccupied with avodas Hashem. So that's fine. But guess what? Not everybody can do that. So what are you going to do? So Hashem wants you to work. And why does he want you to work? He wants you to work and make your parnasa according to halacha. What does that mean? Remember, parnasa is an important thing. And you cannot just sit back and let it happen. Hashem will not give you anything. Again, a regular person, you're not going to get parnasa and say, well, Hashem decides what I'm going to do nothing. That's not what Hashem wants. He wants, you have to be busy. If you're not busy, you're going to get yourself in trouble. That's a fact. Adam and Chava didn't have that much to do. They didn't, use their time as wisely as they could have, and they sinned. The Mishnah says, Batola mevi lidei shimum. If you waste away and not keep yourself active, you're going to get yourself into big trouble. So Hashem wants you, it says, I want you to make a living, and I want you to work at making a living. But I also, and this is the part which really develops your emunah, I want you to make a living according to the Torah. And now I am going to, there's an idea, a marshal. What was the worst thing for the United States economy during the Obama years? One of them, I'm not saying the only one, many things were bad, but one thing was the regulations. The regulations made life impossible. Well, guess what? Hashem in Chosh and Mishpat has really regulated our ability to make parnasa. We have so many laws of so many details in parnasa. Let's look at the simplest one. You have to keep Shabbos, even if a multi-billion-dollar deal that you've been working on a whole year can only be signed on Shabbos. You have to be willing to lose it. You have to be willing to be honest in business, even though your competitors are not honest in business. And you'd think it wouldn't make parnasa. The halacha, Hashem, now, the American government is not Hashem. So when they regulate you, there's a lot of other issues. When Hashem regulates you, he's working so you will flex your emunah muscles. And when you're busy making parnasa, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but you got Shulchan Aruch regulating you. Why? Because that's what Hashem said so. And at first blush, you can say, this is going to wreck my whole parnasa, because they know I have emunah in Hashem. See, when the person is actively involved in making the parnasa as Hashem wants him to, but now he's tested, will he follow the halacha? So when he follows the halacha, this becomes a exercises in emunah.
Rabbi.
And Hashem does not want you to sit back and do nothing. That's not his ratzon, right?
I understand, but somebody in business who's following halacha, okay, and somebody else comes in and opens up the same store,
right?
So why should they have to take that person to Besdin? Why, if they have the bitachon and they have been working
for the same reason? Okay, for the same reason why he has to get up every day and open the store at 9 o'clock. Why does he have to do that? Because
that's part of the hishtadlus. And
part of the hishtadlus is removing things that would damage you. What if there's a leak in the roof?
But if it's mutter for him to be there.
No, we said if it's not mutter. If it's not mutter, which case you bring here? If it's not mutter, if the person is transgressing the law, your hishtadlus is to prevent damages to come to you. That's normal hishtadlus. That part, emunah does not say you don't make any hishtadlus. If the halacha is on your side, then that means you should make that hishtadlus no different than any other hishtadlus that you make, right? Doesn't mean I don't have emunah. It means here's the emunah. I ask what the halacha is. I don't know what the rabbi is going to tell me when I ask the shaila. The rabbi could say, I'm allowed to defend myself and take it in court. The rabbi could say, I'm not allowed to. The fact that I asked the shaila already shows I have emunah, because the ruling can be that there's nothing to do about it. He's allowed to do it. And once I'm saying I will follow, this is where this whole idea of having a halachic mind is very integral to emunah. Because if you don't accept having halacha mind, you don't have anything to guide you and have emunah in. And therefore, you have a guy opens up. Instead of flying off the handle and getting angry and all these things, emunah says there's a Torah that instructs us how to make proper hishtadlus. Go ask a rabbi, go to a bezdin, and find out what they say. So if they say the guy opening is going against halacha, then you have two things. Number one, you're entitled to make proper hishtadlus now. And number two, there's another aspect. If the guy opens up keneged halacha, that guy is gonna, be in big trouble one day for sinning, and you have to stop him from doing an aveira. You understand? Now, so that's what the normal that you're having complete bitachon by saying, I'm going to ask a shaila, and whatever the rabbi says, I will follow. If the rabbi says, what's the difference if somebody steals from you? Somebody steals from you. We can say, well, it's have emunah. But there's a Torah with a Shulchan Aruch that says a person who steals, you have to find him and he has to give it back. Why doesn't the Torah say, well, if Hashem wanted the guy to steal, let's just let him have it? Obviously, the Torah is saying, but the real emunah is following the halacha. Let the bezdin determine that the guy is a ganav. Now, yes, it was Bashert that Hashem wanted him. So sometimes Hashem makes us do more hishtadlus than we thought we needed to make sometimes. So you figured, you have a regular day, and Baruch Hashem, you have a lot of customers. They're coming easily. You don't have to work very hard. But some days you got to work. Hashem says, we're going to do a little more hishtadlus. Now, again, I forgot which Hasidic Rebbe it was. I don't remember. There was a story that there was a Rebbe who saw Hasidim, and he had a guest, and one of the Hasidim stole his most precious golden candelabra, right? And when one of the Hasidim said, this guy stole your thing, he says, I don't believe it. I'm not going to be B'kabel Lashon Hara on somebody. And then when they found out it was true, he says, well, I guess he must have needed it. Well, that Rebbe is like living like the Baal Shem Tov. He's in another world. He's on another planet. Okay, we aren't. And therefore, there's a halacha. If the halacha says somebody steals from you, the Torah is, it's like you're suggesting, there's no halacha of returning stolen money. But it's Hashem's will for that. There's no halacha to go to the doctor. No, Hashem says part of the Torah is guiding you in the emunah of making the correct hishtadlus. If Chazal say, remember, the Chazal said, if you have money that's not coming to you, that's a thief. So if you're saying, I will listen to what the bezdin says, and if the bezdin says the guy's entitled to take the money, I won't say anything. If the bezdin says I'm entitled to get it back, then I'm going to do my normal hishtadlus to follow the Torah. Hashem wants us to go to court. Hashem wants that nobody has money that he doesn't deserve. So it's really two-pronged. It's your hishtadlus, normal hishtadlus, plus you're making sure that another Jew is not sinning. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh, aren't we? How do I live in my house and say, well, I'll let now. You could be moichel him, but it's still not a great idea training that guy to be a ganav. There has to be a concept of some base of law and order so that people follow halacha. So that explains that idea. Now, just to reiterate, because it really is fascinating, it ties into this week's Parsha. So the Chazal gave us three scenarios here. He gave us three scenarios. You understand, Hashem makes a judgment on Rosh Hashanah, what's going to happen. So now, the judgment can be, you're going to have a good year, whatever it is. And Parnasa is fine. Somebody is opening across the street. The halacha is on your side. So therefore, emunah dictates you follow the halacha, you make your hishtadlus. and you win the court case, the guy can't be there, and that original plan of you making X amount of money, this is the hishtadlus you made that Hashem's ratzon would come into being. Now, in the other hand, what if Hashem said, initially, you're not making 100,000 like every other year. This year, on Rosh Hashanah, I judged you from last year, you weren't such a nice guy. And now this year, you're going to take it, I want you to have less. That's my ratzon, says Hashem. You're only going to make 60,000. So you know what Hashem's going to do? He has to find a way to make it happen, right? So what does he do? He has a guy compete against you in a halachically permissible way. Now that is the tool of Hashem to take away your parnasa. That was decided on Rosh Hashanah. And once the Bezdin Paskins he can open, your Bitachon says, I have to let him open across the street, and I even have to help him if he needs help. Even though I know I'm going to make less money, because you have Bitachon that Hashem decide how much money you're going to make. Third scenario, the Chazon Ish says, is that I'm filling in a little of the gaps, okay?
Right.
But there's a beautiful Tvivre Torah on this parsha, but I can't go into that. There'll be another class. But the point is, Hashem can decide on Rosh Hashanah. Remember, the parsha says, this Eretz Yisrael's land, that Hashem has his eyes on you constantly. Tamid, Mereishi Sat Shana at Sof Shana, from the beginning to the end of the year. So the Maral explains, and Rashi and others, they all explain like this. Hashem can decide on Rosh Hashanah, you're supposed to make $100,000. You're a good boy. Guess what? You may, in the middle of the year, do some terrible things. And when you do some terrible things, Hashem has built into the system that you're no longer deserving of what I said before. Even though we say Hashem decides everything in Russia, it's true, but there's another factor that is not as well quoted, but should be quoted. You're supposed to get $100,000 based on what Hashem judged you on Rosh Hashanah. Now, he looks at you as a nice guy. You're a Shemayim, you're honest, you're this, you're that, and Hashem on Rosh Hashanah says, you're going to get 100,000, nice parnas. Then guess what happens? Shortly after Hashanah, you start doing things unheard of. You use your free will choice to do sinful activities. Mamish, sinful activities. Whatever it is, hard got a hold of you. Now Hashem, when Hashem decides you get 100,000 on Rosh Hashanah, this is how it works. It's like he puts it into the spiritual bank, and then every week, he lets you withdraw $2,000, and it's just through the guise of the parnasa that comes in through your sales. Okay, so Hashem. Now, if you do averos, big averos, Hashem says you're not the guy that I decided should get $100,000 though. Now you have changed, and since you have changed, I now change my judgment based on who you are now. It goes both ways. A lot of us think, it's also great for tshuva. You can do tshuva and all these things. That's true. But you could also do averos. So when Hashem decides to give you the 100,000, there's an assumption there. The assumption is you're going to be who you are for the whole year. Now, what if you decide, free will choice, to become kind of wicked? And you don't deserve that 100,000. So how are you going to lose it? You're going to lose it by someone opening across the street, not according to halacha, and you lose the case. Or the Bezdin doesn't have, he won't go to Bezdin, or there's no Bezdin to help you. And that's what the Chazi said, that if you were meant to be punished, he'll have a Russia do the dirty work to punish you. If it's a punishment, it's not going to come from a guy who's opening up according to halacha, because Hashem wouldn't want to have to violate halacha for that. If you were just meant to always lose it, but if you were meant to have it, and now you've done your own rishus, and therefore you're supposed to lose it, then Hashem will bring the bad stuff to you through a bad guy, so to speak. So your attitude is key, in which you're saying, I'm willing to submit to the Ratzon of Hashem. Okay, I think that's a good answer. It was a good question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good answer. That's like you like to have it. Good questions and good answers.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Let's move on to, I think it was very important to flesh it through, because I think there could have been other people who have the same question. We really got to get it through to realize you do have to make ishtablis. Okay, Tes Zion, continuing now. He says, and here's another aspect why you find that people disrespect the halachic process. What are the challenges that people have in accepting judgments. When a Bezdin makes a judgment, why is it at times we really feel that we have trouble accepting that judgment? Why is that so? So he says like this, Heyos hachra'aso hamuchletes eina min hamuskos harishos. When the Bezdin makes a final decision, often that decision that they arrive to is not something we would have thought of right away. In other words, you get a situation, you do just a quick analysis, and our quick analysis would suggest A. But the Bezdin, they look through everything. They look at all the facts. They probe deeper. They have a much broader knowledge of Talmud. And they come out to a conclusion after much investigation. Number one, factual investigation to clarify the facts, and then halachic investigation. And often you'll find halachas that are counterintuitive to our minds. And therefore, they've plumbed the depths of the analysis. They've reached way deeper than what the first initial reaction is. And they have really gone deep into this. And they make the decision not from a cursory review, and not from what we'll call conventional wisdom, but from the real toiling of the judge and the efforts he makes to really investigate into the situation. So therefore, you can have all kinds of halachic issues that at first blush, we may be going with a secular mind of analyzing a certain business halacha, but the Talmud Chacham may know an obscure Gemara somewhere at the end of Baba Basra that you're not familiar with, and he says this is a direct application to your case, and you have to learn to use your wisdom in a different direction. So us lay people, we just said, well, it seems open and shut. It's a simple case of this. The Chacham says, wait a minute. There's a lot of Gemaras I got to review now and see if they apply. And he's going back and forth. Oh, this Gemara would not apply this one, but this one would, and therefore he understands it. Okay, and that's the problem. We just look at it with our not scholarly way of looking at it, and the tzaddikim look at it much deeper. It's interesting. There was a story with Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zechron Livracha. I don't remember the exact details, but Rav Moshe issued a certain psak. There's another rabbi who was a Talmud Chacham, but you're talking about Rav Moshe is the Gadol Hador, head and shoulders beyond anyone else in the United States. You have another rabbi who's a big rabbi too, very critical against Rav Moshe's psak. Rav Moshe suffered a lot of insults in his life from people who thought they were in the same league as Rav Moshe. And he said, well, the guy's criticizing Moshe. I don't remember exact details, but the main idea is here. He says, well, the guy writes, obviously Rav Moshe didn't notice a Marsha Ichves somewhere in a Masechta so-and-so. And therefore he came to the wrong conclusion. So the Talmid of Rav Moshe came to Rav Moshe and said, Moshe, you hear what the guy's saying? So Moshe smiles. Does he think I never saw that Marsha? I've learned that Marsha 100 times. I've already come to the conclusion that this Marsha is not Eli B'Zeh Hilchasa. Rav Moshe went through Shas hundreds of times. Shulchan Aruch, Shach, Taz, everything. Hundreds of times. And I think any regular scholar could say he went through it 3 or 4 times. So Rav Moshe knew the depths of everything. And it was such a joke. So yeah, I'm not denying the other guy was a scholar, but as a scholar who goes through Shas a couple times isn't going to have the same understanding. They interviewed Rav Fishel Schachter recently. I forgot who it was, some kind of, I think secular Jewish people, whatever. And, with all these shilas with COVID-19. And they ask him the shilas, and he answers like that. So they say, Rabbi, like, where do you have the ability to answer like that? These are complex shilas. So he says, I'll tell you what, I've been working on this shilah for the last 80 years. In other words, I have a Torah mind of 80 years. In Herschel Schachter's mind, the entire Torah, he's kulo Torah, and he's absorbed it all. So he has a halachic mind, and therefore it's just, and he's probably very smart on top of that. Okay, but it's not just being smart. I mean, he just is a learning machine. And since he was a young fellow, like for 80 years, this is all he does. So it's the preponderance of his mastery of the Shas gives him the ability to just whip it out. Yeah, but if me and you got to look at it, I got to start going to the sources. You got to start going to the sources and this and that. But he's already got it all. So that's the idea. So when we hear a court decision, we with our simplistic mind say, I don't know, it seems open and shut. The guy, and especially when it's for your favor and you have a bias, because it seems pretty straight that this shouldn't be allowed or whatever. But they're coming from a much deeper place. Okay, let's continue. V'amishpat, and the judgment, Moser l'lev hadayin min hadayonim achayim itanu. And the verdict of the present day judge is a judgment of the present day judge. What do we mean to say? Well, let's just look it up in the books. Well, you can't always. Even though there are books of antiquities that have ruled on many halachic issues, but one thing's for sure, as we mentioned, I think yesterday, before, not all shilas were addressed in a particular generation that was still yet to be asked. For example, who would ever make a psak on COVID-19 shilas? Okay, we've had outbreaks before, but it's been quite a bit different. This was a very unique type of thing. Not many Sfarim ever dealt with these issues. So, and of course, Chazal, when the rabbis are issuing shilas, you can't think of every possibility that could exist. So now the Dayan has to take his wealth of knowledge and the Torah mind that he has and has to start making application of the law in new situations. And since these are new situations, so, other people, could think to disagree because they're going to say, well, where did you get that one from? Okay, because that's the nature of halacha. Halacha has new concepts, has to deal with new, quote unquote, modern technology, modern types of shilas, just shilas of, what do you call it? If you have artificial insemination, someone's carrying a baby, what's the status of it? All kinds of questions that, need a thorough understanding of certain arcane Gemaras that someone will have an application over here, but there isn't any previous jurisprudence on it. So a person, can't just say it's black and white, you can't disagree on. Now, simple questions of Borer, for example, the Rav will say, listen, it's an open case of Shulchan Aruch, Mishabur over here, so he can't argue with you. When you have things that are open to interpretation, so other people are going to push back on that because they're going to feel that that rabbi's interpretation isn't correct. But the truth of the matter is, Rak Ela, but only these people, Hamoisrim Nafsham, they mamish self-sacrifice their souls, Velibam and their hearts, Lahavin Amitoso, to really plumb to the truth of halacha. Yimtsoach Hare Rov Ashkira, they will find it after much effort, for Otsem Iyunum, and the power of their depth thought, Achadayan Vahadin Chadhu, until the judge and the judgment are one. He is one with the halacha. And this is one of the situations that Sutton really could have a lot of fun. He can create a situation to allow the litigants to dispute this. To show a rebellious shoulder, so to speak, ladin, like to turn their head face against the din. Vadayin and the judge, and to denigrate it and to take it into the wrong place. Lamer to say like this: the loser could say the following: since it's not a black and white halacha somewhere else in Shas, but the dayan knows he is one with the halacha. So kibinetios libo. So what is he going to say? He's going to dispute the dayan. He's going to say kibinetios libo shaladayin l'tzarecha. You know, I guess this rabbi is kind of inclined to this way. He's kind of a strict kind of rabbi, you know. He created him. That's how he made the judgment. He really didn't understand the case and the judgment thoroughly. And the person's going to say for himself, there's no doubt that the justice is on my side. But the judge didn't go to the depths necessary. He didn't really have the right understanding according to my frame of mind and my wishes. And everybody judges based on what he thinks. You think I'm obligated to surrender myself to such a crooked judgment? In other words, people, they think that, this rabbi, that's the way he usually does things. He's a very strict rabbi. He doesn't understand or whatever, but you have to understand it that way. So let me just end with a fascinating story. Again, my memory is not so good. I think it was with the note of Yehuda. I could be wrong. I think it was, but I could be wrong. I'd stand to be corrected. That shows you how long it is since I've said this story. Again, I know the story, but it could maybe not be the note of Yehuda. Anyway, it's when the note of Yehuda became the Rav in the town. And of course, there are always balabatim who want to be able to, at the very beginning, compromise the prestige of the Rav in the city. There are some people who have such a Yetzer Hara, especially if they're shtickle scholars. So what do? They really want to, take away his credibility. So what do? They come up, and they're smart also. So they come up, they're going to create a case of Hilchos Kashrus that is not talked about in the Shulchan Aruch, not talked about Shach, Taz, any of the poskim. And they're going to make it up. In other words, they're going to take a chicken that was shechted, that's completely kosher. But then they're going to take a pin and put it somewhere in the lungs afterwards of the chicken in a way that the Shulchan Aruch never discussed that case. So what's going to be, this rabbi will never be able to know the answer. And right away, if he's an honest rabbi, he's going to say either he doesn't know, and if he does say, we're going to say, where did you find it? Either way, we'll discredit the rabbi. That was their plan. So they come in one day, very serious. Oh, rabbi, we got this chicken. We're not sure. Can you take a look at it? There's a pin over here, this and that. And they're making it look like the pin was there before it was shechted. Then it's a shaila, right? Anyway, so the Rav says, let me take a look at it. It's an interesting shaila. Let me get back to you tomorrow. Because right away, the Noda B'Yehuda knew this was not a normal case. Anyway, so the guys go home. They're so happy. They know he ain't going to come out of this one. So Noda B'Yehuda, 2 days later, he calls the guys in with a very strict face. He says, you guys are a bunch of liars. What are you talking about? You're liars. What do you mean? Tell me the emes. Was the pin in there when you shechted it, or did you put the pin in afterwards? Oh, no, we didn't do it. It was there the whole time. He says, you're lying to me. Now admit it. You put the pin in afterwards, right or not? And they're starting to, but he's mamish, let him have it. He says, I will not make a ruling because you're liars. Finally, and they knew they were liars. I said, okay, we admit it. We made it up. But Rabbi, tell us, how did you know? He said, I'll tell you how I knew. So I see your shaila. So I go home. I start going through the Shulchan Aruch again. I figured maybe I didn't learn it properly. And I go back and forth. And I see there's no sources for this. Now, this isn't the first time this happens to me. But usually when I'm really stuck, Hashem just gives me siyata d'shmaya. And I just happen to pick a sefer and boom, it's there. And I get the answer. Hashem does help me sometimes. I'm not infallible, but Hashem helps me because he knows that I'm the Rav. So I'm coming to the shaila and I can't find an answer. I'm davening to Hashem to help me. and there's no siyata d'shmaya this time. There's no divine assistance. And I'm wondering, that's strange. Then I figured there's only one conclusion. Hashem only gives you siyata d'shmaya when you need siyata d'shmaya. If he isn't giving it to me, must be I don't need it. Why would I not need it unless it's not a real case? That's how I knew you were liars. And they said, oh, that's Taka Rav. So anyway, so the Chazish doesn't mention this, but this is part of it. The judge is one with the halacha. He's so intimate with the halacha, he's one with the halacha. That's why we have to be very careful of how we respond to when a proper Rav gives you a psak halacha, even though you can't believe it's the truth. You don't think it makes sense. You have to know he's one with the halacha. And that's how you develop the respect for halacha. Okay, we're going to stop it here. Now, for the next couple of weeks, me and my wife we have not had any vacation since January. And the last 4 months have been extremely trying. So, but we're not going anywhere out of town per se. We're going to have a little bit of a staycation. So, we're going to be, this class and many other classes will be on hold for the next 2 weeks. And we'll be raring to go for Rosh Chodesh El. So we're gonna, next time we meet, I'm sorry, I have to spend a little time with my family and my grandchildren, and this is the time to do it. So I'll miss giving the class, but Mirz Hashem, this will be where we'll pick up on Yos Yud Zion. It'll be 2 weeks and change. Right in the beginning of Elul, we'll begin again with these halachas. Okay, have a good Erev Shabbos, everybody.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Enjoy